Hello, you guys. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, and I am bright. There we go. How are you guys? Thank you guys so much for joining in. I'm sorry I'm a little later than I planned to be for our Tuesday, but I wanted to hop on here and chat with you guys for our Tuesday talk about human trafficking and what's going on in the news. So if you follow human trafficking at all, or the news stories, you know, the Super Bowl just happened, and that's considered a very big event in the world of human trafficking. And there was an amazingly awesome news story that came out that we have to talk about and we have to be inspired by the ability and the inspiration to just say something. So that's the theme of the day. First, I want to remind you guys, I am super ridiculously, insanely excited to remind you guys that we will be at Summit Live in 2 weeks. Summit Live is the culmination of the most amazing minds in the social media atmosphere. And if you can imagine the influence social media has on the fight against human trafficking, it is insane. And the fact that we've been invited to go and to have a panel and to speak is just mind-blowing. So if you don't know about Summit Live, look them up, send them a note, look them up on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else, and send them a note and just say, hey, you guys are awesome. Thanks for welcoming Erase, because it is, if everybody cared that much and would open their doors, we would be in such a better place. And so we are super grateful to go there, and we are very excited to connect with these leaders and to get their perspective, because it's that two-way street that we can see both sides. And so it's very exciting. That's in 2 weeks. I believe we're speaking on the 22nd of February, which is actually also End It Day. So very exciting. Now, back to the story at hand. If you have not heard this story yet, there's always super exciting stories. We always look and see what's in the news. There's a lot of stories that a lot of times they can be very depressing and heavy and dark. And every once in a while there's a story that is just so exciting. And one of the stories that came out this week was of an airline, a flight attendant. And many airlines now are starting to train their flight attendants to just look for signs, just look for things that don't fit, that just seem a little bit off. And so this flight attendant noticed, first of all, it was flying into where the Super Bowl was, so they were already being alert, and there was an older gentleman who was very well dressed, and next to him was a younger girl who looked very worn and disheveled and just out of place. And when the stewardess or the flight attendant would speak to them, she was not allowed to speak, and only he spoke for her. And she had been trained. She had been made aware of this situation and empowered. And I think that's a huge piece too, is you have to be empowered to do something. You know, sometimes we're kind of like, well, this isn't my place. This isn't, I don't know if I'm, the right one for this. And she had been empowered. The airline had taught them, do something. And so she thought on her feet, and what she did is she left a note in the restroom, and she'd encouraged the girl, and I'm not sure how this piece worked, to use the restroom, because she knew that was the one time the girl would have to herself. And the girl wrote on this piece of paper, "I need help." And with that simple, those 3 words, the flight attendant was able to make the connection. She just reached out enough, confirmed her thoughts, and the flight attendant went to the pilot. And the pilot called down to air control. I'm not super fantastic with all the airline terminology. And when they landed, there were police at the gate to question these two, which is just amazing. It turns out she was a trafficking victim, and they were able to rescue her and to prosecute and to arrest the individual she was with. Now, here's the thing, is that I think when we hear this, we're like, yeah, that's so cool. But what if I was suspicious and it wasn't anything? What if I made a fool out of what if I made a big deal out of nothing? You know what? Say something. I can tell you that if I was traveling with my friend's daughter, for instance, and I happened to be all well put together, and she was distraught because something horrible happened, and she was disheveled, and there was a mistake made, and at the gates, I thought that I was just taking care of my friend's daughter, and I got to the gates and the police showed up. Yes, at first it would be a little bit scary, but then I would just think, wow, somebody loves that my friend's daughter so much that they've done this. You have to understand, if somebody's caring about a kid so much that they see something's awkward and they want to do something about it, That's a beautiful thing. That's a great thing. So do that. Make the phone call. Believe me, the cops are going to stop them or whoever's going to, and do the questioning. And if it turns out all on the up and up, wonderful. Guess what? They now know that people care and are interested and invested. And I think that's a big piece in our environment right now. Like, we need a community and a culture that's like, you know what? We're just worried. We're just worried about you and we care about you and we want to make sure you're in good hands. That's a beautiful thing. I actually, just a little bit off topic, I just learned of a story, and I'm going to forget where this came from. Oh, it was a gentleman out of Florida that was talking about the story of these individuals climbing, and I want to say Mount Everest, and on the way down there was a climber whose mask malfunctioned, and his oxygen, and there were like 40 people that passed this guy by. One person thought, you know what? Somebody else will help them. Somebody else is more equipped to help this guy. You know, somebody else assumed, oh, somebody's probably on their way. Somebody else assumed. There was all these different thoughts about this guy on the side of the trail who, honestly, he died. He died on the side of the trail. 40 people passed him by and everybody thought somebody else would do something. And you guys, that's where we are in the fight against human trafficking. We're just in this like, well, if it's really that, somebody else will notice. Somebody else will do something. This is just, it can't really be this, right? I mean, it's only in movies. It can't be in front of me, can it? But it is, you guys. And that's when it makes it super, super, super hard, is when it's right in front of you. Because the hardest thing is that for the victim, they're in plain sight. And that's even more hopeless than to be hidden. It's one thing to think if you were hidden behind closed doors and you think, well, if anybody saw me, they would know and they would help. But if that person is shown in the daylight and still nobody helps, that is truly taking hope away from somebody when they are in the light. There's a really interesting biography. I don't know if anybody is as old as I am to know about, is it Lacey Shepard, I want to say. She was kidnapped at a very young age, and she was held captive by a husband and wife. And she was like kept in a back storage shed. And it's a very horrible story. But anyways, as she grew up, she got older and they started taking her out. Like they took her to the beach one time. And she was like, it was hopeless. Once I got to the beach and I realized like nobody cared or knew who I was. It wasn't now if she had told people who she was, she had been on the news. If she had said who she was, people would know. But in the meanwhile, she was just out there. And that's what caused desperation. She was so lonely because nobody actually reached out and cared. And so that's the message tonight, you guys, is say something. We see things and we're like, something's not right. We've all seen those little moments where we're just like, maybe it's a boyfriend and girlfriend fighting and you know it's not a good fight. Maybe that's not human trafficking, but we've all seen those moments where we go, something's just not quite right. So here's the thing, you guys, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you have to say something. There's a phone number, and I tagged it in here. It's the National Human Trafficking Resource Center line. It is 1-888-373-788. I want to make sure I say that right, but it's in the post. And their request is say something. Their demand is say something. They would rather jump down rabbit holes of you being paranoid. They're not saying, hey, check this, and this before you call us. They are saying, if it seems awkward, if it seems wrong, if something's just not right, call us. That's amazing, you guys. They care that much. They're ready to jump through the hoops. They're ready to face the bad guys. They're ready to do all of the legwork. All they need is our eyes. That's it. That's all they're asking. They're saying, when you see something, please just give us a call. Not saying you need to get involved. Not saying you need to go confront them. Just make the phone call. That's it. So if you're, and there's all kinds of settings. I think a lot of times we want to go, oh, well, we wouldn't know when human trafficking is happening because we don't go to that neighborhood. Because obviously human trafficking only happens by the girls that walk the street in that one neighborhood. But guess what, you guys? It is everywhere. I mean, it is everywhere. It's terrifying. It's in small towns. It's in big towns. It's on the internet. It's in the newspaper. It's everywhere. So let's say that you're at a truck stop. The truck stop, the terminology is not prostitute, it's lot lizards. And it's a girl working the parking lot, literally knocking on the doors of truck drivers saying, "Hey, are you lonely tonight? Do you need somebody to come and keep you company?" And that's how she makes her money. And maybe it's her and her mom. Maybe it's her and her stepdad. Maybe it's her uncle who's trying to make money. It's that. And a lot of times we don't think like that. We go, "Well, that's just weird. Like that girl looks like she's like 14. I mean, maybe she's just going with her uncle on an adventure, but she's dressed kind of weird for 2 o'clock in the morning at a truck stop. Why is she? That's just weird." That's all you have to do is make a phone call. Get a license plate number, make a phone call, and just say, "Here's what I saw. Something doesn't seem right." That's it. That's all. That's all you have to do. Maybe it's just a relationship. You see them at the mall and you go, "That guy's a little older than he should be with this girl. He's yelling at her in a really awkward way, and she seems just a little bit, her clothing just isn't right. There's just something that feels off." Maybe they're at a park. Maybe you just get the feeling that's not a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. There's just something dominant about him that just doesn't feel right. All you have to do is make the phone call. All you have to do is say something. Again, I'm not saying go get involved. I'm not telling you to go beat him up or ask her any questions. You don't have to. You just have to make one phone call. I'm begging you, actually just program that phone number into your phone. It takes you like 2 minutes. Program the phone number, National Human Trafficking Resource. I don't even, just put human trafficking, whatever you want to do, but keep it in your phone. Maybe it's somebody down the road and they have a maid or a live-in, I don't want to say domestic servant, that sounds so violent, but like they have somebody that keeps their house clean and they live with, and you just don't see them. Like they barely ever get out. They don't seem to have their own life. They don't do anything. Maybe they don't even have a vehicle, no bus pass. They're just not out. That's trafficking, guys. That person could be domestic servitude. Like they might not even know how to get out. They might be stuck in there. And the news stories that have come out of that are just terrifying. You know, people come from another country and they think America is the place to be, or any other country. This isn't strictly a United States problem. And the next thing you know, they're trapped and they don't have a way out. You know, if you don't have a vehicle and you don't have a bus pass and you're in a place you don't know, you're very much stuck. So that's when you make a phone call and you just say, "Hey, that's the thing." And maybe somebody goes and knocks at the door and they have a conversation. We let the professionals do it and they have the conversation and they find out, you know what, it's all on the up and up. And they don't even have to say, "Oh, well, your neighbor 3 doors down reported you." They can just say, "Hey, there was just a report. We want to make sure everything's good here." And that servant will feel, the assistant or the maid or whatever word, they will know that they're cared about in our country, where they're like, "Wow, somebody was that worried about me." And maybe even the person who owns the house is like, "Wow, that really sucks. Okay, I better make sure I'm on the up and up." So say something. Maybe you're driving down the road, you're coming home from a late night of work or hanging out with your friends, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and that massage parlor is still open. And you're like, that's interesting. I usually get my massages at noon. 2 o'clock in the morning, that's an interesting time for a massage. And you see a van pull up and you see some teenage girls get out to go in there and you go, no, I definitely never went and got massages at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was a teenager. That's weird. That doesn't make sense. You just make a phone call. Maybe it's a girl and her friends are having a sleepover at her mom's business. Not very likely, but maybe that's the case. You make a phone call. Let somebody else figure it out. But if that is 10 girls that are being trafficked, that are being taken into that place, imagine what you did with your phone call. Like all you have to do is dial the phone and just say, "Hey, here's this awkward situation. It just doesn't seem right to me. I don't know. This is what it is," and let them take it. One more. Maybe you've got the little boy knocking on your door. It's like selling candy bars or whatever. And you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't need any candy bars." And he goes back to what you thought was his dad, and his dad just seems really angry and is yelling. And that's just weird. It's just weird. And you go, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what's weird about that. I don't feel like, if the Girl Scout leader was selling Girl Scout cookies with her girls, I don't think she'd get mad about it. There's just something missing. make the phone call. There's a bajillion situations. I tell the story of my sister. She was in California. She's like, I just saw this photo shoot and it was weird. She's like, the girl was too young to be dressed the way she was, and the poses didn't make sense, and the people taking pictures didn't seem like high fashion, edgy photographers, and something was weird. And I'm like, well, why? What did you do? And her answer was legitimate. She's like, well, I figured if something was wrong, if it was something, somebody else would do something. Like if it really, she's like, I knew it was wrong, but I just assumed somebody else would do something. And to this day, that was years ago, and she still talks about it because she didn't do something. But then again, I don't think she knew the phone number. She was literally like, I wouldn't know who to call. Like, do you call 911? That seems extreme. And then the cops show up like there's a homicide happening. She's like, I just didn't know who to call. So that's why I'm asking you, I'm begging you, I'm telling you as forcefully as I can. Put the phone number in your cell phone. Save it. Pass it along to your friends. Just say, here's the deal. When you come across something weird, maybe you're on Twitter. You guys, nowadays with live streaming, as much as I love live streaming, as you can tell, live stream is used for other things, and you might come across something being live streamed. And you can make the phone call, and you can just say, here's the thing, I don't even know where it's at. Here's the person's hashtag, or here's the person's hat, or whatever it is. But at least pass along the information. That's all I'm saying is pass along the information. Make the phone call and just say, hey, here's what I've come across, and it just doesn't seem right, and this is why. That's all we need from you, because if we have a dedicated team willing to make the fight, that's awesome, but their eyes only can go so many places. If we all use our eyes and we all go out there and reach and help and then do the reporting, then that team is so much more powerful. So that is your message of the night. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys so very, very, very much. I'll be back here next Tuesday to chat with you more about the fight, anything else that came up in the news, any other ideas. If you guys have any questions, comments, please feel free to message us. And I will be back here next week. And don't forget Summit Live, you guys. I am super duper duper excited about them. They're the epitome of say something, because they're like, you know what? It's not wrong right now where we're at, but we're ready to start looking. And so we are super, super, super excited about that. So I adore you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you guys next Tuesday next Tuesday in the evening. Let's say that. Sound good? Thanks, guys.